Hi everybody, Paul the Sim Racer here. Today we're looking at getting the seating position, steering position and pedal position perfect for driving in sim racing. Every Tuesday I'm going to be giving some driving tips that can hopefully make you better in sim racing. The first one we're going to look at is all about your driver position. So let's start by talking about why the driver position matters in the racing seat. You want to be really comfortable, because if you're comfortable, it'll be easier to control the car. As well as this, you'll be better at being consistent lap after lap. And then finally, you hopefully won't have any risk of pain from your seating position. So let's just take a quick look at all the types of adjustment that you can have. Whether you've got a proper sim rig that's made out of profile, or you've got something like a play seat challenge, there are many options on how you can adjust your seat. So you're starting with the seat, you've got the seat height, the seat angle and the seat distance. Then moving on to the wheelbase, you've got the height again, the distance from the seat, and then the angle of the wheelbase, which obviously would depend on what wheel you're using. Then finally, you've got the pedal tray, so you've got the pedal distance, so the distance from the seat, and the angle, depending on what your rig is like and the pedals that you're using on there. Now it's also worth mentioning there's some other factors in adjustment, so there might be a certain level of distance between the wheel rim and your actual base, and then your pedals possibly have lots of different adjustment on it, but I'd suggest you can fine tune this bit much later once you've got the fundamentals already in place. And so the first thing that you're going to have to decide is what actual seating position you want to replicate. So if this is a GT car or a road car, you're going to want a different seating position to, say, a Formula car, if that is the sort of position you want to go for. And so the first thing that you'll want to start on actually setting up correctly is your seat position. So it's the position back and forth, the height and the angle of the seat. And so as I said earlier, depending on what type of car you're trying to replicate, this will affect a lot of how you position the seat. Now this is all down to personal preference. Different people will be taller, shorter, they might just be more comfortable in a different position. But generally what you want for a GT or a road style car is to have the feet level kind of at the same as your bum or below your bum on the seat. And in a Formula style car, they'll be at your bum level or above your bum level generally. Now to enable these seating positions, you'll want, if you're going for a GT road style car, to have a bit of an incline on the back of your seat, but not a huge amount. Whereas in a Formula car, you will be looking for a lot of tilt at the back of your seat to enable you to have that kind of horizontal position with your feet upright in front of you. So the adjustment of this will be seat and rig dependent, but on my rig I've got the seat plates that have holes so I can actually tilt it back a bit, and then on my old Playseat Challenge I would just adjust the strap. Eventually you should have it adjusted to the angle that feels best for you in your driving position. So once you've got your seating position set, the next thing you want to focus on is the wheel position and the angle. So you're really aiming for two things here. You want the wheelbase and the wheel to essentially point up to your shoulders. So if you draw a line through the wheelbase and the wheel, it should sort of connect to where your shoulder area is. And that's so that you're able to use your arms fully and not actually cause any strain or overstretching as you rotate the wheel. The other thing that you really want to focus on is being close enough to the wheel that you've got about a 90-degree bend in your arms. Now you don't want it so you're stretching really far, and you don't want it so you're too cramped together. Now it's worth making sure you get the seating position right first before tilting the wheel up or down too much, because you might just be tilting the wheel to compensate for the fact your seat's too low, too high, or you're too far away. And so the recommended way people suggest actually checking that you've got this correct is to actually put your arms out straight in front of you onto the top of the wheel and see if it matches around your wrist or your forearm area. And again, how you adjust this will be completely rig dependent. On my Simlab, I've got numerous places where I can move the wheel both forward and backward and tilt the angle accordingly. On my Playseat Challenge, it was a little bit harder. It would generally be kind of fixed, but you could still tilt the wheel and mount it differently. And then on to the pedal position. So again, this will be dependent on the type of position you're trying to replicate, but you really want to have a bit of a bend in the leg so that when you're braking hard, you're not overstretching and straining your leg, Likewise, you don't want too much bend that it's actually uncomfortable to drive. As well as this, you've got the throttle, and the throttle you really want to not be completely stretched out when you're throttling, but also you don't want it to be painful when you're actually off the throttle and you can't remove your foot off the plate enough. The key thing here is to just experiment with the height of the pedals and the angles relevant to your seat to see what is most comfortable for your driving position. The good thing with a lot of high-end pedals is there's a lot of adjustment on the pedals themselves once you've got them mounted in a certain position. So initially just focus on the distance between where you're actually seated and where the pedals are, and then you can probably adjust the angle or the pedal plates themselves later on to make it better. The final thing to note here is you want a good spacing between the pedals, which probably match where your hips and your legs actually naturally fall, so you're not straining to one side or the other. Obviously, this is going to have to be fine-tuned to each person. So what you should end up with is your seat tilted back a bit, depending on your style of car and preference. A good bend in the legs going down to the pedal. A bit of a 90-degree angle on your arm, and the wheelbase actually pointing towards your shoulders as a result. So the final thing I wanted to touch on was troubleshooting pain. If you've got lower back pain, it's either an incorrect seat height and angle, or you're too far away from the pedals potentially. With wrist pain, it could be the wrong wheel angle, or again, the wrong distance to the wheel. And then with shoulder pain, it's probably the incorrect angle because you want the wheelbase to point at your shoulders rather than you being kind of hunched over or too extended. And then finally, we've got foot or ankle pain. This is likely to be down to the incorrect distance to your seat or the pedal angles actually being incorrect for your position. So I hope this video has been useful. Good luck adjusting your rig to actually suit your driving, and stay tuned for more tips on Tuesday in the future.